fundamentally, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
Marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug in the United States. Dangerous drug.
It is clear, however, that if left unchecked, Saddam Hussein will continue to increase his capacity to wage biological and chemical warfare and will keep trying to develop nuclear weapons.
Being a pro-war pundit means never having to say you're sorry.
William Crystal led the march to Baghdad behind a battery of Washington microphones. He has not responded to any of our requests for an interview, but he still shows up on TV as an expert.
He's got to begin to show progress in 3, 4, 5 months once the U.S. troops get in.
The Times liberal hawk Thomas Friedman also said no.
With the media. We're not trying to show you propaganda. We're just showing you what is. We're just showing you what is.
Citizens of the internet, we are live with episode number 3 of the Almost Daily Show. I was right down to the wire putting all these clips together for you, but it's a good show today, I gotta say. And I got some coffee, and we're ready to rock. A lot of good news on the horizon. And an interview that's kind of my banner story today, an interview that AOC did with Jon Stewart that we're going to talk about. So I think you're going to enjoy a lot of the content that I have here for today. And let me just get my slideshow uploaded so that we can get started. If you've been paying attention to what's going on in the news, of course, the only thing that really anyone is talking about right now is Elon Musk's Nazi salute, which, I think when and I talked about this in the last broadcast I did, but I think when you look at what happened there and why it happened, Elon kind of achieved his goals. I'm not going to make an endorsement here, but I don't know if you can see that or not. Cookies brand, Kush. Thanks, Burner. Anyway. We are ready to go with today's news. So I think the first thing I want to talk about today is really big news, and a rare occurrence where a politician kept their word on something. And that happens to be the Ross Ulbricht pardon. Now, if you don't know who Ross Ulbricht is, he's the guy who ran the Silk Road website, and he got into a little bit of trouble with the law as a result of that. So rather than yammer about it, I will just play this intro clip for you where Kim Iverson explains the situation. So here you go.
Things happened today. First and foremost, he pardoned Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht. This is big news because a lot of people were just hoping that Trump would commute his sentence. Ross Ulbricht has been sentenced to, I believe, 2 consecutive life terms. Is that what he's serving? So just to be clear, Ross Ulbricht did not do, he didn't commit any violent crime. He never hurt anybody. He was convicted of creating a website, and the website was to allow the sale of goods and services that would be totally and completely untraceable. That's what he did. And because the website was used by people who were selling illegal things or doing illegal things, Ross Ulbricht got roped into that, and they basically just slapped a slew of charges on the guy and sentenced him to life in prison twice over. I mean, just threw him into the slammer, threw the key away.
It kind of makes you wonder what the motivation behind this was. like what interests were pushing for this? Was it like the pharmaceutical industry because he was getting, illegal drugs to people through this site? Now, obviously, he wasn't doing it. He just Silk Road was just kind of like the meeting spot. It's almost like a 4chan, or like a kind of like a, I shouldn't say 4chan, but it kind of like a user group where people would, get drugs from each other.
Lock the door and threw the key away. Since then, a lot of, especially in the libertarian circles, they have been advocating for at least the commutation of Ross Ulbricht. Many of them campaigned on this. They said, if a lot of the libertarians who never really had a shot at becoming president, but in their stump speeches, they would say things like, Ross Ulbricht, when I'm president, I'm going to completely pardon him. When they started to embrace Donald Trump, he was very much embraced this time around by the libertarian community. He even went and spoke at their convention. Donald Trump.
So this is one of the things I think that Donald Trump did this election cycle that was very smart, that a lot of people missed, is he went and spoke with a lot of these disparate interest groups, like the libertarians, for example, and won them over. He also did the same thing with Muslim voters in Michigan.
Trump was pressured by the libertarians to at least commute the sentence. That's what they were asking for, commute the sentence. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., when he was running for president, also vowed that he would pardon Ross Ulbricht. Trump actually said, once he started knowing about this case and libertarians were pressuring him, he then promised that he would commute his sentence on day one. Well, he did not do that on day one. People pointed that out, said day one went by and Ross Ulbricht is still in prison. But Trump gave them something better on day two, and he actually completely pardoned him. So this was even bigger and better than what people expected.
So this says a lot for a couple reasons. First, it shows that Donald Trump is a man of his word, a guy who, followed through on a promise he made to voters, which is, there's no real political benefits from doing this other than delivering on something you promised libertarian voters you would deliver on. And so good on him for that. The second thing is, this says a lot about the future of, illegal drug use and kind of, markets, because it gives me hope that Trump is going to legalize marijuana on the federal level, because clearly, like, this guy does not deserve to be in jail. He did nothing that hurt people. Enabling people to sell drugs, you could make an argument if they were, drugs like fentanyl or cocaine or something. He was aiding the hurting of people. But in a libertarian world, which is, in the world of drugs and alcohol, I think is the world we should all live in. As long as no one's hurting you, people should be allowed to do what they want. No one comes out and makes the argument that, because McDonald's is making too many people fat, we need to stop them from selling burgers. Now, you can debate the semantics of that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that want to make sure that McDonald's is a little more transparent about how many calories their food has and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But you would be laughed out of the public space if you went and said, oh, Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A need to be shut down because they're making people fat, right? Or they're killing people of heart disease. But somehow you can get away with that when it's drugs.
This is a big win in the cryptocurrency community. They're very thrilled about this. The libertarian community is very thrilled about this. This is a win for a free and open internet, a free and open commerce. To say you setting up a business are not responsible for people committing crimes using your business. And I never really understood this one anyway, because it's not like we're going after Verizon or T-Mobile for people committing crimes using their telephone services, right? I mean,
there you go.
You pick up a cell phone, you're calling your hitman. You pick up your cell phone, you're calling your.
So that's, I think, the point that she makes there that's better than anyone. So let's see. Now, before I show you this, I'm going to show you what Ross Ulbricht himself had to say. But I want you to know that there's a lead that's being buried here, and that lead is what the Democrats are saying about this Ross Ulbricht pardon. So stay tuned for that. But before we get to that, Here's Ross Ulbricht himself speaking about the pardon.
Trump granted me a full pardon. I was doing life without parole, and I was locked up for more than 11 years.
Really just seems like a hardened criminal who needs to be behind bars, doesn't he?
But he let me out. I'm a free man now. So let it be known that Donald Trump is a man of his word. Thank you so much, President Trump, for giving me this amazing blessing. I am so, so grateful to have my life back, to have my future back, to have this second chance. This is such an important moment for me and for my whole family. It's an important moment for everybody who's been working for this for years. This is a victory, and it's your victory too. And this is an important moment for everybody, everywhere, who loves freedom and who cares about second chances.
So I think another thing, just to interject here real quick, that this gives me hope for is a pardon of Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. This is definitely a stepping stone to those things. So we'll see, but definitely a good indicator of where things could potentially go.
So it feels amazing to be free, to say the least. It's overwhelming, and for the next however long we need, I'm going to be with my family so that we can reunite and be whole again and heal. But there's a lot to talk about, and I look forward to re-engaging with the free world. And so once I'm feeling up to it, we'll talk again.
So that's what Ross himself had to say about Trump's pardon. I'm sure he's very happy to be out of jail after a 10+ year stint. But what really shocked me about this more than, Trump kind of following through on his promise and letting this guy out of jail is how the liberal class reacted to it. This really surprised me. So I happened to find this article on MSNBC, and it's kind of an excerpt basically from Chris Hayes' show. And if you know the MSNBC crowd, you know Chris Hayes very well. Absolute beast. Chris Hayes is just such a manly man. When I think of Chris Hayes, I think, Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes.
That's beautiful, man.
Okay, so anyway, this is what I really think. So listen to what Chris Hayes has to say about this. So this particular broadcast was, of course, kind of colored by the January 6th pardons, which, if you live in the same headspace as people like Chris Hayes and AOC and Jon Stewart, which we'll get into later, you really think that January 6th was a huge deal and that people really care about it and that those people almost took over the fucking government. Those guys who got into the Capitol almost took our democracy from us. Okay, so right off the bat, just to believe that, you have to be one of the dumbest people alive. You have to have the same level of intellect that people have who thought that Donald Trump was a secret Putin asset. Like he was just sitting in the White House and they had all this hard evidence that he was secretly working for Putin, but they just couldn't get him out. That's how dumb you have to be to believe that the January 6th rioters almost overthrew the government. But I digress. So let's get into this article where Chris Hayes talks about Ross Ulbricht and the pardon. January 6th defendants weren't the only controversial Trump pardon recipients this week. Oh, so they weren't the only controversial pardons. So controversial. So the president's pardon of Ross Ulbricht shouldn't fly under the radar, according to Chris Hayes in MSNBC. This is an adapted excerpt from the January 22nd episode of All In with Chris Hayes. On day one of Donald Trump's new presidency, he could have made a point of pardoning 1,000 or so January 6 defendants who were not violent criminals. He could have directed the Justice Department to begin a review of all January 6 defendants' cases to distinguish between simple trespassers and rioters who assaulted the cops with sticks, bats, bear spray, and stun guns. Listen to the bootlicking just right there in the opening paragraph. Like, oh my God, the protesters, they hurt the police. Our precious police were hurt. The thing I love about this kind of shit is the right's take on these people is like, oh, they're defund the police. They want to defund the left. The left wants to defund the police. Listen to Chris Hayes like licking the fucking bottom of the Capitol Police's boots right here. He could have directed to distinguish between the trespassers and rioters who assaulted cops with sticks, bats, bear spray, and stun guns. Oh my. Oh my.
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
That was, after all, what Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, had told reporters they were going to do in the lead up to the inauguration. So, okay, to make a long story short, the first half of this article was these guys clutching their pearls over Trump pardoning January 6 rioters, who, by the way, have already been in jail for like, what, 2 years or something now? 3 years? Like I think most of them have probably served their time, unless they did something really crazy, at which point, even then, it's like, come on. If these were BLM protesters, Chris Hayes and MSNBC would not be, clutching their pearls like this. But let's keep going here. So this is later in the article. This includes another pardon that got very little attention Tuesday after spending the past decade campaigning on the scourge of fentanyl in a deadly epidemic of opioid addiction. Trump gave a full pardon to a guy named Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the Silk Road Marketplace, one of the biggest illegal drug markets in American history. So this is, again, like as if you needed any more proof that Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow and all these people on MSNBC are just neocon bootlickers. Here you go. The biggest illegal drug markets in American history. Good Lord Almighty. A jury found Ulbricht guilty of charges including drug trafficking and conspiracies to commit money laundering and computer hacking. He was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 40 years without parole, plus a fine of $183 million. But Ulbricht has a cult following among libertarians and crypto fanboys, groups Trump was looking to court ahead of last year's election. Oh my God, he did politics. He went out and asked people what they wanted and then delivered on it. How dare he? How dare Trump listen to people and give them what they asked for?
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
So let's keep going with Chris Hayes' pearl clutching. I love the poll quote here. Trump's blanket pardon for January 6 rioters isn't politically popular. It polls terribly, which is, proof that he didn't do it for political reasons, but hey, I digress again. If you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, a sentence of time served, Trump told the Libertarian National Convention back in May. But Trump didn't just commute his sentence, which, by the way, might have been defensible. Oh my God. Chris Hayes. Why
don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
Oh my God. He issued a total pardon to a guy who was convicted of facilitating the sale of an estimated 200 million of illegal drugs and illicit goods. It was a straight political quid pro quo. Don't take my word for it. Take Trump's. And we know that political quid pro quo is something the Democrats are just far above. They would never do anything like that. By the way, like you said it. I love the way that this starts. the way this article started with the line that, or the poll quote, that a blanket pardon for January 6 rioters isn't politically popular, but he did it anyway. So then they end this one with, it was a straight political quid pro quo. And so, anyway, to keep going here. In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, "I just called the mother of Ross William Ulbricht to let her know that in honor of her and the libertarian movement, which supported me so strongly, it was my pleasure to have just signed a full and unconditional pardon of her son, Ross." Trump's blanket pardon for January 6 rioters isn't politically popular. Trump's blanket pardon for January 6 rioters isn't politically popular. It polls terribly, but he doesn't care. That is political blasphemy. He did something that doesn't poll popularly, and he doesn't care. How dare he? How dare he do that? Trump's a term-limited 78-year-old man who already has what he wanted most, a get-out-of-jail-free card and a few more years of adoration. Yeah. Like, how dumb do you have to be to believe that? That's why there were shots fired at the guy, and they tried to put him in jail because they were worried that he just wants another couple years of adoration and a get-out-of-jail-free card. That's why they did all the shit they did to the guy, right? So he's paying back the people whose support he relies on, the people who stood back and stood by when he told them to. Now they are free and pledging their fealty to him, but it doesn't mean there won't be political consequences. So it's pretty amazing to see how shocked Democrats are that like someone would make promises to people on the campaign trail and then actually follow through with them when they win. They're just like, oh my God, he promised these people something and then he actually did it. Chris Hayes.
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
Jesus Christ, these people are so terrible. These people are so terrible. Oh. So it's good news, in case you didn't notice, that Ross Ulbricht was pardoned. Unless you live in the headspace of dumb shits like Chris Hayes, where, this is a bad thing somehow. So moving on to other great things, great moments in the current administration. Mr. Trump just announced that he is declassifying the JFK and MLK and RFK files. Now, how this trickles down is what's going to be interesting to me, because obviously you and I aren't just going to go look at the files now. I mean, maybe we are. I don't know how fast this all comes out. Based on the research I did so far, it's going to be a couple weeks. So let's get started with your boy Alex Jones, who has kind of, of course, he's on the forefront of this issue, right? Here's the first little piece of Alex talking.
Ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one. The people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay. Give that to RFK.
Yes, sir.
He just signed the executive order ordering all of the remaining JFK files to be released. Previously, they slow-rolled it. Trump is...
Alex Jones kind of looking Armenian these days. I like the new look.
Is ordering them released today. If they aren't, he'll send in the federal marshals. Trump orders the release of the final JFK assassination documents. And just a week and a half ago, we aired the exclusive audio from 1971 of the former head of the DNC and LBJ's business manager and Billy Saul Estes talking about LBJ ordering the murder of JFK.
So even before I like knew the, you know, all the gory details of this and saw, you know, Oliver Stone's movie and everything, I thought right off the bat, I'm like, okay, VP is Lyndon B. Johnson. That guy is going to become the president. Where's Lyndon B. Johnson from? Dallas, Texas. Where was Kennedy shot? Dallas, Texas. Who's an instant suspect in this fucking case right here? The guy who becomes president might be suspiciously, you know, just might be someone to look at a little bit. I would, you know, just makes logical sense to someone like me. But hey, what do you know? I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist, and this is for entertainment purposes only. Still,
talk about smoking gun. That interview got over 100 million viewers and listeners on Real Alex Jones. So, in case you missed it, we are going to repost it on X in the next 20, 30 minutes with my little introduction here so that you can share it to add to all of this history coming out. Now, already declassified 5 years ago by Trump. He did it late in his administration. He knows to get it all done up front, hit him with the blitzkrieg.
I hear you. It's definitely a tiger by the tail.
I'm just going to play you a little bit more of Alex Jones here. This is like some of the revelations.
Very, very exciting.
You're good to see you. How's life treating you today? Well, Saul, it's been a pretty touch and go situation. Linda and I have had.
Now, full disclosure, I don't know what this means or how valid this are. I'm just playing you kind of like what Alex Jones is saying as of right now. But these files are being declassified, so it'll be interesting. Hopefully, someone like, you know, Glenn Greenwald or Michael Tracy or Taibbi, someone really goes into the weeds, like once these files are available to journalists and gives us, you know, some comprehensive reporting on it. For now, we get, you know, Alex Jones hyperbole.
No, I hear you. It's definitely a tiger by the tail.
Quite a few unpleasant words here lately over the deal with that he hired Mike Wallace to assassinate the president. It's been hectic in every way, but we've lived through it this far. I guess we'll continue to do so. Lyndon should have never issued that order to Mike, but we've had our differences, and I'm a true blue to Lyndon, as I've always been, and tried to carry out every order that he'd ever given me. But this is one I'll probably never be able to forget. And the times that we've had in Texas, and the embarrassment that Lyndon had gotten from Kennedy, I guess there wasn't anything else to do but what he did. You know, Lyndon.
So one of the questions I have is, why is all this stuff on tape? Like, why haven't we ever heard this before? How did it come out now? And why is that recorded? That's my first question. But I digress. I don't want to get, you know, we can't start sucking each other's dicks just yet here because the files are not out. And to give you kind of a little bit more of a realistic take on how this could play out, here's Mike Benz on one of those.
As a former State Department official and an expert on America's intelligence state, and he joins us now right off the top here to discuss.
Because this is where my head is at right now as well, and everyone's head should be in this place until the ink is dry and we're reading like Taibbi's piece on
discuss
this.
What we could learn when these files inevitably come down. We think maybe in the next day or two. And Mike, it's good to see you tonight. Thanks for coming on. It's so interesting because there's been so much fascination with these assassinations for a long time. A lot of people wonder if we're going to learn that our government was perhaps involved in these killings. What do you think will be revealed when this comes out?
Well, this is hugely exciting that this is a week one executive order that includes not just JFK, but also RFK and MLK. I do need to ring the alarm, I feel, that in actually reviewing the language of the executive order, it requires that within 15 days of the order, the Director of National Intelligence has to present a plan to the president for declassification.
The Director of National Intelligence. Interesting. Who's Trump's nominee for that position? Tulsi Gabbard. Interesting.
Now, the current acting Director of National Intelligence, Stacey Dixon, is someone who has made DEI the #2 priority. And given that that Trump's pick for the head of ODNI, Tulsi Gabbard, is likely to experience significant political headwinds during the Senate confirmation process and is highly unlikely to be approved within 15 days, the plan for declassifying the JFK documents, according to this executive order, will come directly from Trump's primary political enemy within the ODNI. So this looks like it's set up for failure.
It's set up for failure, but could he just do it again? I mean, would that be an option? I mean, Tulsi, I think is going to get in. If they think Hegseth is getting in, which is looking like tonight, I believe Tulsi will as well, right?
Well, it's possible. I think with the Pete Hegseth issue, the concern is about approving a Trump loyalist. Yeah. I think with the Tulsi confirmation, there are other factors involved around the fundamental nature of U.S. foreign policy that is.
So that's interesting what he just said. That's very something to think about. The people who are opposing Tulsi Gabbard are going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that she does not get into that position, because there are going to be things revealed that they do not want revealed. And that's why you see, I see it a lot. Like, there's a big pushback against her now on the left. Like, oh, she sold out. That's it. Fuck her. And listen, I'm every bit as cynical and skeptical as the rest of you, given, the evidence in front of us, given historical precedent, right? Like, we're constantly ripped off, but I can't give up hope that Tulsi Gabbard getting in there won't be a big change. And so I don't really care about some of the finer points of, like how she's talking right now, because I know who she is as a person, and she has a pretty strong track record. So, I think there's a mistake that a lot of, the kind of Bernie left and MAGA makes right now in listening to the media who's been lying to you, this whole time. Like, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, well, the media said that Tulsi Gabbard flipped on fucking, the 207 thing. So, whatever. So that's kind of greasing the wheels to make people be like, okay, well, I guess it doesn't really matter if she gets in now. You know what I mean? And so, like, I would advise that you kind of just take a deep breath when you hear stuff like that, and sit back and go, okay, who's behind this and why would they be saying this? Because it's, again, anyway, let Mike finish.
Likely to allow Republican holdouts. We saw, for example, Lisa Murkowski just today say that she would not approve Hegseth. I would not be surprised if Susan Collins and a coterie of other Republican Senate folks.
Let's assume for a second that it does happen, because it seems like this is something Trump wants, and I understand your perspective there. Let's say that these files do come out. Trump's wording today seemed to indicate that he not only didn't like the fact that these have been hidden from the American public, he doesn't like the fact that they're redacted as well. So if Trump gets his way here, are we going to see unredacted files, and what would that reveal in your estimation?
Well, this gets the second part of the executive order, which is that after the 15-day period where the ODNI will present a plan, there's a 45-day review period. And the issue there is the folks doing the review, if it's the acting's ODNI, may simply decide that certain things cannot be published in that respect. And then also, there is not currently a declassification board created by a Trump executive order to extend what can be reviewed, because currently the only files that comprise the JFK files are the ones that were hand-selected, 75,000 documents that were hand-selected by the Central Intelligence Agency, which many suspect may have had a hand in that. Certainly that is what Bobby Kennedy believes. And so we need an independent review board, not just the documents that are currently set to be reviewed to be declassified.
So this is the kind of thing that gives me hope. Is you listen to a guy like Mike Benz, and the devil's in the details on something like this, right? The top level story is, oh, we're going to declassify the JFK files, whatever. Now the details are, okay, the security state's going to pretend that you got the files when they really just like selectively release stuff. And so it gives me hope that a guy like Mike Benz is in here talking about this, and people like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and PBD and all these guys with podcasts talk to people like Mike Benz and listen to people like Mike Benz. So they're not going to be able to get away with that, because there's going to be an active conversation about this as it happens in the podcast sphere, if you want to call it that, the podcast space or whatever. And Trump rode that audience to victory. You know, he clearly leveraged the podcast space to win election, and he's clearly not afraid to do the things he said he was going to do. So it's good. It's a plus. It's a net plus that these conversations are being had. Now we'll see how this unfolds, but let me let Mike.
I think our intel. Yeah, you don't think our intel agencies are going to willingly let this out? Do you believe that the government had a hand in these assassinations? I think a lot of people do.
There is an open question as to whether or not they made it happen or knew it was going to happen and allowed it to happen. A sort of let it happen versus made it happen debate. The fact is if you read JFK and the...
Is this going to be the age of transparency? The age of authenticity? Is the internet going to force this into our politics? Going to force that you can't hide anymore? You know, people back in the day, if you got caught like sleeping with someone outside of your marriage, you would never be in politics, because the parameters of the debate were such that, you know, if you're John Edwards or John Kennedy or Elliot Spitzer or Anthony Weiner, like any of these guys who have marital infidelities, you're never going to be, they're going to use that to blackmail you or use it in the public to smear you. And Trump kind of created this new era where it's like people already kind of knew he was that guy. He's a womanizer. You know, I don't know if you could call him a womanizer. He's a guy with money. And I got news for you. All straight men like women. In fact, Freud's whole fucking, you know, everything traces back to the sex instinct, I think, is pretty on point. You know, dudes buy nice cars and yachts to impress women. Jeff Bezos with his fucking 6 yachts, it's to impress women like Lauren Sanchez. You know what I mean? It's like, that's just how it works. So you're always going to be able to get people with that, but that's changed. So now it's kind of like, you know what? We know this about Bill Clinton. We know this about Trump. Like the whole rumor now that Obama slept with Jennifer Aniston. If he did, and there's like real evidence, props to him. It seems a little suspicious, and I don't want to cover gossip like that, but let me let Mike finish here.
Unspeakable, or any of the other literature that's been published since the declassifications of the 1990s. The Central Intelligence Agency was reading Lee Harvey Oswald's mail before it even got to him, because they had an in-process counterintelligence operation fingering him after his activities in Russia and Cuba, which means they knew everything that Lee Harvey Oswald was saying on the phone and receiving in the mail. It would literally come to the local CIA station house branch before it went to his own home residence. So there's a question of whether or not they allowed it to happen or failed to stop it, in which case you have a medium-sized scandal, or whether or not there was central coordination, in which case you have an international scandal.
Okay. Well, you're one of the best guys to talk about this, and I'm excited to see.
And if you're
what
a
potentially
fucking
we could learn if these
agent of the deep state, or you're an agency like this that has this power, you're going to be able to shape the narrative as this information comes out. So just be very, you know, I would be very skeptical of everything from here on out, but let's see what happens. It's going to be an interesting ride. And so kind of keeping on this note, but moving on to the next story I have for you is Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation. Because I think with someone like Matt Gaetz, it was really easy for the establishment forces to sink a guy like Matt Gaetz because of what I just talked about with the sexual proclivities. Every straight guy likes pussy, and they're going to use their position of authority, their money, to get pussy. Like, that's how guys work. So there's always going to be a problem with a straight male Look at Pete Hegseth, he's a decent looking dude. He's a good looking dude. He's a handsome dude. Like, I'm sure he's got plenty of fucking skeletons in that closet. Even people like Elon Musk, who aren't that attractive, do. I was watching Candace Owens talking about Bill Clinton the other day, and it's just so clear. Candace Owens is like, I can't help but like Bill Clinton. Yeah, because Bill Clinton's a womanizer, and he puts off that energy, and so it's like it's hard not to like him if you're a woman because he's putting out the energy that to bring you in, right? Anyway, Tulsi Gabbard, however, does not have that problem. She's not. You're not gonna have a moral dilemma with someone like Tulsi Gabbard. So this tweet went out from Donald Trump Jr. And I thought it was interesting new development because listen, the Democrats have always had the ability to do this, to use this power. Bernie Sanders' movement could have done this so easily, with small dollar donations. Hey, this so-and-so is standing up against healthcare. We want to do, the Ron Paul campaign invented these money bombs. Anyway, point being is this is the type of energy that you really have to get your political agenda through in the United States at any time in our history. I think it's just it's the same now as it was, 100 years ago. It's just there's different mediums for it, right? Like the people who ran the railroads and big businesses back in the day influenced politicians through this. Now you do it through fucking crypto or fucking, bribes through, digital bribes, whatever. But it's the same dynamic. So here's what Trump says. Any Republican senator who votes against Tulsi Gabbard deserves a primary. No more deep state bullshit. And he's retweeting this guy, Andrew Sarabian, who I can't vouch for. I don't know who he is. But he says Tulsi's being smeared by some of the worst Republicans in the Senate and their friends in the corporate media, precisely because she isn't a tool of the deep state. And you saw this with John Bolton, and I love so much that Trump, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, but Trump rescinded their fucking security and stuff. Like, that is the energy you want to see. Like, even if you don't like Trump, you have to fucking appreciate that a guy like John Bolton is getting his just desserts. Fuck John Bolton. Fuck these people. And so this type of energy, it's so refreshing to see. They're like, look, we're going to get Tulsi Gabbard in. And if you guys fuck around, we got Elon Musk behind us to throw $1 billion at your opponent. You can't hate that. And the Democrats had this power and they could have done it too, but they don't care about a left agenda. They're right wingers too. So their job is to get in there and bleed about irrelevant bullshit, window dressing, like Elon Musk did a Nazi salute. Everyone fucking clutch your pearls now for the next 6 weeks while we don't debate important things. And so I think the reason I brought this up is because I see already the left and, a lot of people kind of jumping on this train with the forces that want to sink Tulsi Gabbard's candidacy. And what I mean here is this is a guy who responded to my tweet. And I don't know who this guy is. He's probably a good person, whatever. But he's like, Tulsi is MAGA, not MAGA. So that's the new narrative, because she had to say some shit that's conciliatory to Israel to get into office. And listen, I'm not gonna fucking say you're wrong yet, but I will say this. People said this about Trump, and what happened once he got past the election, once the election fucking was over and he had the power to actually do something, he got a ceasefire. So the same people that fucking, threw a tantrum over like, well, Trump's just as bad on Israel as Kamala and Biden. No, he's not. He's not. Actually, the people like me and Do Dissidents and Jimmy Dore and people were like, you know what? In the lesser of two evils here, Trump is the lesser evil because he's a wild card on these kind of things. And so I reject this kind of shit because it's you're basically like fucking giving up before anything has even happened. You're just like, oh, well, she's going to be Israel, so fuck it. It doesn't matter. No, it does matter. And this is the kind of energy that the forces against her being confirmed are going to try to spread too. So here's another thing. This is, Blakely, who is, good on a lot of stuff. She already bowed to the deep state, so now she'll have no problem. That was her responding to fucking Trump saying like she needs to get confirmed. And again, it's like, I understand the cynicism, and I think I respect it. I think it's warranted. So I'm not giving you shit for it, Blakely, but I'm just saying, like, let's wait and see before we jump to these conclusions, because again, the people who do not want her in are smart enough to use these kind of tactics to split people around her and go like, oh, well, she already caved to the fucking powers that be, so it really doesn't matter if she gets in or not. No, it clearly does matter, or you wouldn't have these types of people fucking losing their minds about it in the press and doing everything in their power to stop her from getting in. So I want to show you this video of Mike Schellenberger talking about this, because he just lays out a bunch of really good points here.
Our corrupt IC, and Gabbard is the person for the job. Coinciding with their failures abroad, security and intelligence agencies repurposed tools designed to protect Americans, turning them inward against perceived domestic enemies. Trump's second term might not only interrupt this weaponization of government, it might also be an opportunity for major investigations. Gabbard and others could have the opportunity to declassify and unredact evidence of key IC activities, including illegal surveillance and disinformation campaigns. It makes
So who fucking cares if she caved to Israel? They all fucking caved to Israel, okay? Don't be stupid. This is a good opportunity, and giving up and saying like, oh, fuck her, she caved to Israel. So did the fucking Democrats. So did anyone. It doesn't matter who you vote for. They all have to suck that dick. So that's part of the game, clearly. But this is a good opportunity. And again, if Tulsi was not a big deal, these fucking people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo wouldn't be losing their minds about her being the pick. So,
sense that Brennan and others that are former officials would strongly oppose someone who may have the power and motivation to expose the IC's past misdeeds. Over the course of the last 8 years, we have seen the intelligence community repeatedly abuse its powers. During Trump's first campaign for president, the CIA under Brennan had foreign allies illegally spy on Trump's advisors, possibly to justify the FBI's Russia collusion investigation.
Possibly.
In 2017, then DNI James Clapper published an intelligence community assessment which declared Russia had interfered in the 2016 presidential election to benefit Trump and hurt Hillary Clinton. In reality, Brennan's hand-picked analysts cooked the intelligence by burying the evidence.
So you hear this shit, right? Brennan's fucking, we saw this shit. Brennan's fucking team cooked the evidence. They fucking formulated a story about Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, and fucking morons, Cold War boomer fucking idiots went, oh, yeah, Russia, oh, Russia's coming to get us. Fucking morons. But the point of me breaking in here is that, again, it's like this push to stop this push to stop Tulsi from getting in here. These people have controlled our elections for God knows how long. Like the permanent state have subtly, like not out in the open, but like through these kind of like mind game rhetoricals, like the people going like, oh, fucking Tulsi doesn't matter because she's for Israel. That's the kind of shit these people who called the goddamn Hunter Biden laptop Russian disinformation, that's the kind of head games they play to keep fucking control of the reins of power so that fucking elections don't mean anything. And so we have an opportunity here. And I hope that Trump is genuine about this. He seems like he is. And based on his actions so far, I have to fucking give him the fucking benefit of the doubt, because it sounds like what he wants to do is fix the fucking system so that this kind of shit can't happen anymore. And these fucking permanent fucking state cunts who are unelected and can't control the narrative anymore. John Brennan and James Clapper and these Obama era information, fucking, what do you want to call them? Security state cunts should not be able to fucking control these massive narratives and puppet the and I did an entire piece on this, and I think I might have to revisit it this year. But when Trump got elected, Obama's fucking people on the way out put in place a whole bunch of shit to fucking sink Trump in the future, or anyone like him who could get around the fucking mainstream narrative through social media or whatever. They put elections under the Department of Homeland Security, which is weird. Suddenly the Department of Homeland Security has jurisdiction over a goddamn election in the United States. So that's I hope he gets rid of that. But then also the Smith Modernization Act, they fucking run propaganda. Like if you watch NPR, literally all these people, I just posted a short when Biden was president about the fiery State of the Union speech he did. These people all fucking read from the same goddamn script. I think Kurt Metzger said it best. The people on the news are just actors. They're not fucking journalists. They're fucking actors. They get those jobs because the fucking puppets and the editors who are fucking, puppets of security and intel and shit know that those fucking empty-headed actors will just repeat the goddamn script that's handed to them. They're not going to think critically or ask any questions that aren't permitted to be asked. Anyway, let fucking Schellenberger finish so we can move on.
Which showed that Putin actually favored Clinton, who he viewed as more stable than Trump. In 2020, the FBI interfered in the election by spreading disinformation and urging censorship by Twitter and Facebook of the Hunter Biden laptop. They pressured.
So again, my point in that little rant, just to kind of clarify that real quick, is this: how long has this been going on? Like this is just what we know about. This is just what we have evidence for, that these fucking people, put all this fake shit out into the information ecosystem to influence the election. They've been doing it forever. Howard Dean's was a fucking probably a CIA info op to make sure that on behalf of the goddamn pharma and HMO industry, so he couldn't, have a real, anyway, I'll shut up.
Social media companies to suppress the New York Post story about the laptop and reportedly led officials to believe the laptop was disinformation. The FBI had in fact verified the laptop's authenticity in November 2019 and concluded that it had not been manipulated, according to a whistleblower. The FBI maintained constant communication with Twitter to flag posts as misinformation. And the FBI appears to have manipulated data, engaged in entrapment, mishandled evidence, and retaliated against whistleblowers. Just days before the 2020 election, 51 former U.S. intelligence officials signed a letter claiming that the laptop story had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Since then, evidence...
I love the language these assholes use. Classic earmarks. We use the word earmark because we're very intelligent and we know what earmark means. Earmark. It's like what Trump got after they fucking shot at him. Jesus fuck.
Has emerged showing that some signatories had active contracts with the CIA at the time, and senior CIA officials, including then Director Gina Haspel, were aware of the statement before
has all the classic earmarks of Russian disinformation.
It was published. And in 2021, multiple former CIA
earmarks
analysts and a board member of the CIA's venture capital firm tried to take control of Twitter's content moderation. Former members of the intelligence community have been involved in multiple, supposedly independent groups advocating for greater online censorship. All of these abuses of power must be investigated, and it may be now or never that we get the opportunity through some of Trump's more unconventional nominees, including Gabbard. In this specific case of the Times, it's notable that its reporters have frequently argued for authoritarian censorship efforts in the name of fighting misinformation. Specifically, Stephen Lee Myers, one of the reporters on the paper's hit piece against Gabbard, has written multiple articles defending Kate Starbird, Renee DiResta, and others who oversaw mass censorship at the behest of the Department of Homeland Security. Gabbard could bring transparency to an institution that has spent the last 2 decades abusing its powers.
Yeah, so that's why they're all calling her a threat to fucking democracy and a Putin puppet. It's pathetic, isn't it? It's fucking pathetic. So I just want to show you what the contrast here between these debates that are actually happening right now with Trump nominees, these, real life, debates that are happening, and contrast those with what happened when Biden was president, or when Biden won a couple years ago. So I just let's take a trip real quick down memory lane here. Where's my here we go. Where's my memory lane sound drop? Here we go. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? So this tweet is from Beso de Marx, my boy, my comrade. And this is from, hold on, let me pull out here a little bit. This is from November 23rd of 2020. And what does he say here? Well, he says, Biden picked Antony Blinken, a proponent of the Iraq War and the bombing of Syria and Yemen, as Secretary of State. These reactions from liberals make me want to break my phone. So we saw what happened with this guy. We saw him provide over a nonstop fucking slaughter of women and children in the Middle East. But look at what liberals had to say at the time this guy's nomination did. This is the one that I had a response to and why I kind of remember this. But this lady says, Biden's flow of experienced and qualified cabinet picks are like democracy foreplay. I can't wait for the orgasm on January 20th. And I said, all I know is that First Lady really needs to get laid, and it shows. Wow. Lady, come on. Bust out the vibrator and get to work, please. Here's another one. The stepson of Holocaust survivor, Mr. Blinken has often spoken of the moral example the United States sets for the rest of the world. Oh, and boy, did he. This means a lot to me. This guy's like, this means a lot to me. These empty fucking platitudes mean a lot to me. I'm sure this guy would probably defended the, maybe not, you know, I don't want to blame this guy. Maybe he's a good person. Maybe he's not, he didn't defend the new Holocaust. Maybe he didn't defend the slaughter of women and children in the Middle East by this dipshit. But more than likely he did. Let's be honest here. Here's another one. Good read. Tears to my eyes. It brought tears to my eyes. Just feeling a little return to normalcy. Yes, because decorum is the most important thing. Who cares how many lives are lost as long as we feel like our standards and practices are being met in a proper way and things are happening normally in Washington, D.C. Yes, that's what's important. Yes, what's important to me is normalcy. Yes, normalcy. When I think of what Trump has brought to normalcy, it makes me think what a terrible person Trump is and how terrible normalcy has been.
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
You'll notice me kind of like looking for those clips. That's why I said normalcy for like 3 minutes. And the last one here for you. Scoop, it's official. Tony Blinken will be Joe Biden's Secretary of State, and the announcement is expected to be made on Tuesday, sources tell me. Never heard of him, but that doesn't say Mike Pompeo, so I'm fine with him. Well. I want to move to our next little subject here of discussion, because this is a good segue from Mike Pompeo to this. President Trump revokes security detail for Mike Pompeo. Yo, okay. The way that these people so shamelessly went at Donald Trump with every goddamn thing that they had, I dare you to call this petty. I dare you. You are an absolute bootlicking piece of garbage if you do not revel in this and see it as kind of like elections have consequences. Because this guy is probably one of the biggest reasons Trump didn't accomplish any of the things he actually said he would be able to accomplish in his first term. And I think whether you like Trump or not, let's just say you completely hate him, you have got to recognize that this is good for a potential future Democratic president, because this is what's being exposed here is how people like Mike Pompeo stop the will of the voters from being enacted. These types of guys hang on or hang around in DC, and so regardless of who we elect, nothing fucking changes because this cunt is there to ensure that it doesn't. And so Trump fucking pulling his security detail, whatever you got to do, Trump, do it all. But like, I have no love for this guy. And if you listen to you read the comments, some of the comments on this, oh my God, it's disgusting. There's just people like relentlessly licking this guy's boots. So another, one of our heroes who had his security clearance revoked was John Bolton. Oh, my bad. That was wrong clip, but it's still apt for John Bolton. Here's what Trump had to say when he was asked about this in a recent press conference.
Why did you remove John Bolton's security clearance, sir?
Because I think that was enough time. It's you take a job.
I think that was enough time. I love it.
You take a job. You want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we? I thought he was a very dumb person. But
I want to talk to you.
Come into a meeting with John, because every time people saw me come into a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought I thought he was a very dumb person, but I used him well, because every time I want to a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought that he'd attack them because he was a warmonger. He's the one that got us involved.
So this is one thing I will say about Trump. One honest criticism I have about Trump is like, he could never admit that he did something wrong. You know, he's like, well, I picked him because, when I took him to meetings, people thought we were crazy. That's why I picked him. He actually served a purpose, even though he's a piece of shit. Like, no, dude, like, you made a bad choice. Just admit that you were misled on this guy and he's a piece of shit. You don't have to paper over it like everything you do is perfect.
Along with Cheney and a couple of others, convinced Bush, which was a terrible decision, to blow up the Middle East. We blew up the Middle East and we left.
So he's right about this. And this is the consensus shit, the consensus breaker shit, the decorum that Democrats and Republicans alike respected for so long. And for him to come along and say, we fucked up the Middle East, we blew up it's just like nails on a chalkboard to people like Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, I'm sure.
We got nothing out of it except a lot of death. We killed a lot of people. And John Bolton was, one of those guys, a stupid guy.
Yes.
But no, you can't have that for life. You shouldn't expect it for life.
Okay. If you're a Bernie person, thank you, Lord Bebo, for this clip. If you're a Bernie person or like part of the left, or they like, if you're not a brunch lib piece of shit Democrat who just follows whatever the goddamn Democrats tell you, like Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball, if you're not one of those people, how can you not love that? How can you not fucking love that comeuppance on these neocon pricks? Like that, these people, the John Boltons and the, Dick Cheneys of the world, are what activated me in politics. And now a lot of my punk rock heroes are brunch lib lunatics who support this because they've been propagandized that Trump is like so terrible for some reason, like, and they just lap it up like good little dogs. And so before we get to our banner story of the day, which is AOC and Jon Stewart, I want to just show you what's going on with the security state, because Trump has come in right to this like kind of very like peace kind of driven narrative. He said in his goddamn inauguration speech, I'm going to be like a uniter. I want my legacy to be as a peacemaker and a uniter. He literally used those words. It was shocking to me because I've never heard a president say shit like that. And then he's got, they're still pushing Tulsi Gabbard, and who again has been like, no regime change wars, fucking Kennedy, all these people who, yes, licked Israel's boots during the fucking campaign, but still, I'm going to take them at their word, because this is the closest we've got in the last 20 years to some actual like anti-war people with the reins of goddamn power. And you're going to shit all over them because someone told you they like Israel or something. Just calm the fuck down. Okay, stop listening. Like the Washington Post didn't tell you the truth about Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. They're not telling you the truth about Tulsi Gabbard. So fucking settle the fuck down. You know, people that are trying to dunk on MAGA and dunk on Tulsi and all this shit. What I want to show you right now is the response to this new kind of paradigm of peace that's breaking out in the United States. Our good old NATO allies are going to come to the rescue to keep the fucking fires of war burning. And you know that like the British cunts are like all wrapped up in this too. This is why Ukraine is a thing, because these cunts are making a bunch of money, I'm sure, somehow, and they need an excuse to ramp up military budget there. That's the whole point of NATO. So I just wanted to share this with you. I thought this is a little kind of one of those stories that kind of slipped through the cracks recently. But Britain is saying that Russians are coming into their space, so we're going to have to do something about that, right? Russian spy vessel enters UK waters for second time, British Navy says. Wow, that sounds very dangerous, doesn't it? I mean, you know, when I hear that, I just think, wow, Russia, you stay out, Russia, you stay out. All right, so here we go. The British Navy, this is from CNN, said Wednesday that it's ramping up measures to protect its waters from secret Russian operations after identifying a Russian spy vessel in UK waters for the second time in weeks. How dare they drive their vessel through UK waters? Like, do you guys have a country on the fucking water? Like, you own the goddamn water? The Russian spy ship called Yantar sailed through the English Channel this week, according to the Ministry of Defense. So they also have the fucking English Channel, which is like one of the few places you can get through. So basically, they're like a submarine went through the English Channel, which means Russia's according to the Ministry of Defense. As it sailed through the channel, it was flanked by HMS Somerset, the ministry said. So yeah, they like followed it through. They escorted it through to make sure it wasn't doing anything wrong, and it didn't. It just kept going. I love what like the best part of this story. This is a brief story, but the best part of this story is the Soviets' response, the Russian response to this. Wait, it's good. The Yantar had first entered British waters in November and loitered. Loitered, like it hangs out at 7-Eleven, like over critical undersea infrastructure. That could be anything. Like it loitered over critical undersea infrastructure, like it parked by a fucking pipe or something. It said, adding that after receiving a warning from a British submarine, it left the UK for the Mediterranean, but has since returned. So they told it to get out of here, and it left, and then it came back through and was flanked by a fucking ship. Okay. So let's keep going here. So concerns of Russian sabotage in international waters are growing amid Russia's war in Ukraine and a string of other incidents in the Baltic Sea. Okay, what other incidents might you be speaking of? CNN. British Defense Secretary John Healey said in the UK was strengthening its protection of cables and other offshore infrastructure in the Baltic Sea, providing maritime patrol and surveillance aircraft to aid NATO's efforts. There you go. That is, we need money for NATO because Russia went through the fucking the English Channel. My message to Russian President Vladimir Putin is clear. We know what you're doing, and we will not shy away from robust action to protect Britain and the pocketbooks of NATO. Sorry, that pocketbooks of NATO line wasn't in there. Healey said Wednesday, it will deploy, and here it is, it will deploy an advanced AI system known as Nordic Warden for the same purpose. So this is justification for a NATO AI fucking deployment. I'm sure it was not cheap. I didn't actually look it up. I probably should have. This was announced by the British government following damage to the Eastlink 2 undersea cable between Estonia and Finland in December. So we blew up the fucking action stream. But if they get close to some shit, it's time to invest billions in some AI shit from NATO. Makes sense. Makes total sense to me. Yeah. Alongside our joint expeditionary, what was it? Joint Expeditionary Force and NATO allies. We are strengthening our response to ensure that Russian ships and aircraft cannot operate in secrecy near UK or NATO territory. It doesn't sound like it was operating in secrecy. It sounded like it went through the English Channel, and you guys fucking shadowed it the whole time. And now you're throwing a tantrum so you can spend a couple billion on some AI software. That's how I'm seeing it. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. We will continue to call out the malign activity that Putin directs, cracking down on Russian shadow fleet to prevent funding for his illegal invasion of Ukraine. Because we're the good guys, always. Kremlin spokesperson. Okay, this is like the clincher line. I love the fucking way that this guy responds to this. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov declined to comment on the UK statement during a briefing with journalists on Thursday. Asked about the claim that Yantar sailed through the English Channel this week, Peskov said he was, quote, not really familiar with the subject, without elaborating further. So he doesn't even know that they wait. Like, it's not even an issue. You're like, yeah, well, okay, I don't know anything about this. I wonder if Anna Chernova is a Ukrainian who's been hired to help hype up the fucking case for NATO involvement in the Ukraine. Probably is my guess. So we're going to move along now to our banner segment of the night. Banner segment of the night. And I want to like make this as dramatic as I possibly can. How can I do that? How can I make this dramatic? Here we go. Yes. Jon Stewart has a podcast and AOC was on it. And boy, do we have some great clips for you. So I want to start by saying when Trump won his election, it became clear that, the media fucking people in the Democratic side were like, oh my God, how did we miss that the podcast circuit? Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and, maybe Lex Friedman. I don't know anyone that fucking watches Lex Friedman. So I think Candace Owens is right about him maybe having ties to some like intelligence shit. Because like, who fucking cares about Lex Friedman? Most boring like milquetoast dude ever. Like, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Point is, the quote unquote left suddenly decided that a podcaster voice was needed because Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan won this, helped win the election. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked by a text message I just got. And so it's clear that like they're going to Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's like, well, I got to jump in and help, because, I'm the trusted voice among the liberals and the left. And so I'm going to start doing a podcast and I'm going to help reshape the Democratic Party to be better. And unfortunately for John, I think the Democratic Party is pretty much dead. Like, this is what they should have done, 6 years ago, right? Like the whole of the Bernie movement, like, the Democratic Party had their moment and they fucking stomped it and said, no, we're going with Liz Cheney. Like, it's over, really. So I went into this, with that mindset, of course, because, it's a ridiculous idea to even think that the Democratic Party is worth trying to save. But let's just let's watch some of these clips and we'll talk about them because, I'm not monetized. So worst case scenario, I get demonetized for this clip. So I'm going to show the clips. So let's get going here. So in this first clip here from this interview, they talk about, and I have receipts for this too. They just really kick off this conversation by showing a stunning, what I call slosa, a stunning lack of self-awareness, a stunning And this is what the Democrats honestly do best, is that they just a complete and total lack of self-awareness. Just like you see it right now with the Elon Musk is a Nazi thing. Like, okay, clearly Elon Musk did that Nazi salute intentionally. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't that it was like autism or whatever. He clearly did it because he knew that a bunch of cunts would fucking make a huge deal out of it and just talk, he's a Nazi, he's a Nazi. Meanwhile, like, who did it hurt? And what has he done in reality to slaughter like countless women and children, like Joe Biden and fucking Kamala Harris just did for months under Antony Blinken, who we just showed you liberals having an orgasm about when he was appointed, as if like that. Anyway, here's the opening salvo from AOC and Jon Stewart, and just let's bask in the glory of their ignorance.
I was like, all right, I've seen enough.
And nothing surprising. Was it strange to you, one thing that struck me was sort of this sense that the Bidens or the Democrats wanted to preserve this decorum. It was I have to say, it was such a surreal scene to see someone who had attempted what he had attempted at the Capitol be handed the reins of.
Okay, so right there, attempted what? Like, these people think Donald Trump tried to overthrow the fucking election. Still, this is fuck. So their entire dumb fuck worldview is still built on that foundation that's completely fake. That hopefully we find out more in the coming years. But I mean, it was clear to me from the beginning, because I knew people who were actually there, like indie on the ground reporters who were not right wing, and I saw footage of people who weren't insurrectionists, and I saw how the media spun it, and then I saw how they hired a goddamn producer to do a TV show style trial around it and just propagandize people. But let me let them finish here, because I just wanted to note that their entire worldview is based on like the idea that Donald Trump tried to fucking overthrow the election right out the gate. So they're fucking morons.
Power, not just in a peaceful transfer, but one that seemed to want to honor the tea ceremony. And is there a middle ground between storming the Capitol and would you like oolong or throat coat? Like, what are we doing?
I totally agree.
The other day, Rolling Stone had a post about how like some January 6ers who had been pardoned like already got arrested again or something, like and it just made me think, like, Rolling Stone, wow, like what a fall off. Like, now they sound like my fucking overly simpleton Democrat aunt who's like wine drunk and thinks that fucking Trump tried to overthrow that January 6th almost took her democracy away. Even Rolling Stone is this stupid
with it. But this is like a thing in the Democratic Party. This is a thing, particularly with the Democratic establishment. It is this like, I actually think it speaks a lot to some of the class differences and the class striation in the Democratic Party, because
So I just want to say too, AOC does have some kind of moments of intelligence in this conversation, and you'll see them, and I'll give her credit where they're due, because even right here, she's kind of like letting you in on some truth, but then she just doesn't. The lack of self-awareness is where it becomes obvious. Like, okay, wait, you see this, but you still act like these other things are true that are totally fucking not.
So yesterday was also MLK Day.
Boy, did that get lost.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
So no, it didn't actually.
And then I was out. It is this like, I actually think it speaks a lot to some of the class differences and the class striation in the Democratic Party, because yesterday was also MLK Day.
Boy, did that get lost.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
So no, it didn't. So I want to show you a clip from Trump's inauguration speech that, of course, because people are busy talking about Elon Musk being a Nazi, this was conveniently ignored. But listen to Trump. This is directly from Trump's mouth from the inauguration day.
To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
So there you go. Wow, it's like you wouldn't have even known it was MLK Day because Trump was being inaugurated, you know? And I just think that, you know, dress it up in a podcast, Jon Stewart and AOC, like that. Joe Rogan didn't help win the election because of a podcast. It's because it's actually authentic. And you can kind of see the difference with these. This is like totally edited and scripted and fucking like, you know, they've got makeup on. Like AOC's got made up. And it's not like just a raw conversation like a Joe Rogan show is. It's like a scripted thing of them trying to do what they think is gonna help them get back, you know, the ground that they've lost, but they're not going to get it back because the Democrats are fucking terrible. So here's the next like stunning lack of self-awareness piece that AOC just kind of completely it's just so friggin' ridiculous. Hold on. I want to. Yeah. So listen to this. This is just
this go around with Trump. So much more dangerous than the first time around is exactly what you're saying. It's that he is much more normalized this time around than he was.
Here's what's funny about this, because this is a tweet from Jon Stewart's Twitter account, and you'll notice where it cuts in. I have the full context of this clip right here. And what she says before this is actually pretty good, but right here, she just seems out of touch.
As the first time. The first time people were really on edge, they were on guard, they were very vigilant about any break that he would have with these norms.
So I think this is funny too. She's like, yeah, the first time people were like very propagandized about Trump and like what his administration would be like. So, and what she's saying is this time people aren't like freaking out like they were last time. And that's what's scary. Yeah, because people know that you guys are full of shit. People know that your shit about Trump being a Nazi is fucking garbage bullshit. We all know it's fake now. That's why people aren't freaking out like they are. But I digress. We're going to go into this a little bit more in a minute because they talk about it actually.
This time, the norms are becoming him. Like the norms are embracing him. Even these like little things that people may not, like everyday working people may not care about, but they are strong cultural signals. Oscar de la Renta, like dressing all of the women.
See, that's what she's upset about. She's like, how dare Oscar de la Renta, one of my favorite designers, and he's dressing Trump's people. Oh my God.
And like, there's all these cultural symbols, right?
I see. Participating now in this when they wouldn't have participated in the past.
Exactly. Exactly. So like all of these people that were scared before about like being associated with him from the most common basic level to the most elite level, they're all like, they're all in now because this is now a billionaire feeding frenzy. It is a kiss-ass race.
Man.
It is, how can I show how
this is a billionaire kiss-ass feeding frenzy. Like, again, this is how fucking out of touch these dumb cunts are. This is from the DNC. J.B. Pritzker, billionaire.
To be very rich, but take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity. He claims to be very.
Now he's rich in only one thing: political power. Because he actually won. But again, how fucking disconnected from reality do you have to be to just sit there? Like, this is the thing that I think the Democrats really don't understand, is all this moral pleading about Trump. Like, no one cares about it because you do it all too. Like, how can you sit and talk shit about billionaires when Nancy Pelosi And the Democrats are fucking insider trading and making hundreds of millions of dollars using their offices, to fucking gain insider information and fucking game the system. Like, you can't come out and say, billionaires, or it's a feeding frenzy for billionaires, after you just had this guy at your convention talking about how Trump's not a real billionaire.
He claims to be very rich, but take it from an actual billionaire.
Listen to him cheer. Yay! Yay!
Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity.
Yay!
He claims to be
Yay!
very
I've got mail. Jesus Christ. Anyway, back to this
fealty I have to Donald Trump in order to get my digs. And I think what's really important for people to understand, and like now and every day of this administration, is that you're being ripped off. You're being ripped off, dude. Like, everyone is being ripped off. And
yeah, so you're being ripped off by Trump, but let's get into this.
You have to fight the cancer of corruption.
These people all just got pardons, AOC, and this is a report from 2019 about, it's called Biden Inc. from Politico. Listen.
Going back decades, relatives of Joe Biden have either pursued business ventures that have overlapped in some way with Biden's political career. Joe Biden is someone who has a reputation for being very close with his family, but it's been reported over the years that he avoids talking business with members of his family. Some of the pitfalls of that approach to managing his relationship with his family, because members of his family have gotten involved with business ventures that have raised questions. Members of Joe Biden's family.
So how do you go on TV and say, go on the floor of the House or whatever and go, Trump is so corrupt and this is just a handout to corrupt billionaires and businessmen, when this is who you support unquestionably? I never heard you talk about any of this.
Family ran a hedge fund called Paradigm, a special kind of investment fund that usually deals with riskier or more unusual.
In fact, you simped for it. You defended this. You protected, you helped shield Biden from accountability for partisan reasons, because the other side was the ones who were advocating for it.
Types of investments. It was bought in 2006 primarily by James and Hunter Biden. James Biden is a younger brother of
I just
Joe
want to say
Biden.
too, the point of me showing you this isn't that, like, I don't think Paradigm, this hedge fund that they're talking about here that Biden and his family ran, even exists anymore. But it just shows you the kind of people they are and the history of corruption that they have. So and then he just pardoned all of them on his way out. So AOC coming out here and be like, it's a feeding frenzy for billionaires. It's so corrupt. Like, get over yourself, you dumb person.
Biden. Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's younger son, and he was a co-owner of Paradigm. Paradigm was never found to have committed any criminal wrongdoing. 3 former executives at Paradigm sued either the Bidens or Paradigm, accusing them of fraud. While Joe Biden was vice president,
The duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. So help me God.
Paradigm became associated with a number of both convicted frauds and alleged frauds. According to this account that was provided by a former top executive at Paradigm, James, Hunter, and Beau Biden all showed up at Paradigm's offices, ordered the firing of Stefan Feruz, who was then the president of Paradigm. They were accompanied by 2 large men who escorted Feruz out. And then James Biden proceeded to discuss his vision for Paradigm. He said that there were deep-pocketed foreigners who wanted to support Joe Biden. So instead, James Biden was intending to get them to invest in Paradigm. According to the executive who was present, Beau Biden came bright red, angrily said to his Uncle James that this is not something that he's going to have anything to do with.
So it's interesting to note, Beau Biden was the guy with the conscience, and he's the guy that's no longer with us. Interesting, isn't it? So let's keep going here with AOC and Jon Stewart's moronacy, as they completely lack any self-awareness. They actually do get into some good stuff. So I think this is the part I'm gonna show you. Don't quote me on this. Let me.
Some of the Democrats.
Okay, so this is that clip I just showed you from Jon Stewart's Twitter. This is the precursor to that, where basically what he does here, which is absolutely this is why I can't help but respect Jon Stewart. He kind of points out how fake the Democrats are by calling Trump a fascist and a Nazi, all the shit that AOC was talking about, how people are normalized. He's normalized now because people don't buy the propaganda that he's a fascist anymore. Jon Stewart kind of points out how the Democrats give the game away here on that. Like they clearly don't believe it. And then that leads into the clip. You'll see the clip that I showed you a minute ago.
It reveals some of the Democrats posturing.
Hold on a sec.
It reveals some of the Democrats posturing as performative. When you're creating apocalyptic messaging about a fascist,
literally
coming over and doing these things.
Yeah, what I think is funny here too is she leans in like literally, like he's a fascist, but she's not getting the point Jon Stewart's making.
And then when he wins, sitting down with watercress sandwiches and cream cheese and doing the whole 9 yards, it makes you wonder, well, did you believe any of the shit you were saying before?
No, they didn't, John. They did not believe any of that. They will say and do whatever they would say and do whatever they could to keep that guy out of office. And now it's clear why, based on the shit he's doing. They were going to do anything. Of course, they fucking lie. Well, it makes you wonder if they're really serious. But no, they're not fucking serious about it. Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Or was that something, again, that was just a part of your messaging?
Yeah, no.
Yes. Or was it? See, that's a good question, John. But the answer to that question. You know the answer.
Oh, it's really true. And I think something that.
Listen to the way that she kind of, and this is where that other clip starts. She kind of turns left here.
What makes this go around with Trump so much more dangerous than the first time around is exactly what you're saying. It's that he is much more normalized this time around.
So this is the full context there. She totally missed the point intentionally, probably there. But what he's saying is, if Trump was the Democrats spent the entire election saying this guy's a fascist and a threat to democracy, and then when he won, they're all sitting down to fucking play nice with him. So it makes you wonder if they didn't just make that up. It was just part of their messaging. Yes, it was. Clearly, they don't believe that. But she's gonna keep playing that game. Listen, and then she goes into now Trump has been normalized. Yeah, AOC, because people know that you guys are fucking fakes. And that's what Jon Stewart just pointed out. Listen to her. And I might have to play this again, but listen to what she says.
Than he was the first time. The first time people were really on edge. They were on guard. They were very vigilant about any break that he would have with the.
Why were they vigilant? Because they were propagandized into believing the guy was a fucking Russian spy by a bunch of morons and the Clinton campaign, who paid a literal fine for that dossier. The Clinton campaign had to the same thing. Yeah, I won't even go down that rabbit hole right now, but it's fucking terrible because the Clinton campaign had to pay an FEC fine for the Steele dossier, which they funded through, a third party source through Fusion GPS and a lawyer. And the lawyer actually billed them for the time he spent talking to the FBI. It's a whole thing. But anyway, people believed Trump was a fucking secret Russian spy. That's why now he's normalized, because no one buys your dumb shit anymore. Because like Jon Stewart said, people realize it was just part of your messaging.
These norms. This time, the norms are becoming him. The norms are embracing him. Even these little things that people may not, everyday working people may not care about, but they are strong cultural signals. Oscar de la Renta, dress.
Yeah, so she's upset about the designer. But okay, so I want to start this over one more time because I think it's interesting that on Jon Stewart's feed, they started the conversation from where AOC comes in, where she goes, he's normalized now. But listen to the question John asks her, and they cut that out.
It reveals some of the Democrats' posturing as performative.
Hmm.
You know, when you're
She's like,
creating apocalyptic messaging about a fascist.
Literally.
Literally.
Yeah, she's still like, yeah, literally, he's such a fascist.
Coming over and doing these things. And then when he wins, sitting down with watercress sandwiches and cream cheese and doing the whole 9 yards, it makes you wonder, well, did you believe any of the shit you were saying before?
Exactly.
Nope, they did not. And then AOC goes on to prove that of course they didn't. They didn't believe any of that shit. So a little bit more of this before we cut out for the day, for the weekend. Here's this thing about being deported. So I'm gonna go back just a little bit in the tape and play this one for you.
Okay,
Deportation.
well, this person, if you have a criminal record, if you've, sexually
So this is where Jon Stewart, and this is from Timcast, pulled this clip, but Jon Stewart kind of actually accidentally traps her on this a little bit, and it's kind of funny. So listen to this.
If you have a criminal record, if you've, sexually assaulted somebody, you should be deported. And so that's the guise of this bill, right? And they said, so that should be the law. Except that's not what's in this law. Because that is existing U.S. law. It is existing U.S. law.
Why isn't it done then?
And, well, I mean,
Why isn't it done? Yeah,
I think there are individual cases where.
Why isn't it enforced? I'll tell you why, John, because there are a lot of big companies, mega corporations that make a shit ton of money using that, are able to net a shit ton more profit by using cheap immigrant labor that they can just fucking dispose of if they try to unionize or anything like that. That's why.
I'm not
Right.
sure.
You're welcome.
But this
Right.
is what the right does. They exploit these like very narrow individual cases. But the existing law in the United States is that if you are undocumented.
So listen, I do think there's some truth to that the right like exploits fucking immigrants a little bit, where it's like, oh, these people are fucking criminals and they killed this one person. Yeah, okay, an immigrant killed a girl, he should go to jail, whatever. So should Americans. There's more fucking American criminals than immigrant criminals. Like most immigrants are just here to try and fucking work a job and send money home to their families or whatever. Like they're not bad people. I do think that the right unfairly demonizes immigrants like in a way that they probably shouldn't. But it's also like you get called a racist if you're like, yeah, we should like have secure borders and people shouldn't just willy-nilly be allowed to come in and get a job as someone's nanny. Like there should be like some framework, like some real law behind that, because as fucking Rogan and Tim Dillon were talking about the other day, I think our society kind of understands now, like we need to have like healthcare, we need to provide certain safety net things for our society. And if we're going to do that, resources are limited. So it needs to be prioritized for citizens, period. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't help people if they go to the hospital or whatever. Like it's a whole other ball of wax, but let me let these cunts finish.
And you commit a crime, you are put on priority number 1 for deportation. That is standing U.S. law.
And it's not like we don't deport a lot of people, even in Democratic
That's
administrations.
Right. Republicans
That's
say,
a good point.
Okay, say
Obama deported more people than Trump did. And that's largely because the powers that be didn't want to work with Trump. So here is kind of the final AOC Jon Stewart clip that we'll talk about today.
How about everybody like can go to a doctor and you're like, what are you, a communist? And you're like, no, that's the whole world does that.
Well, that's
except
the thing.
us.
What she says.
Our country is remarkably propagandized.
Boom! Yes! So much so, they think January 6th was an insurrection, and they think that Donald Trump is a fascist because you guys fucking propagandize them. Like, this is, again, the stunning lack of self-awareness. Let's hear that one more time.
We talk about, how about everybody like can go to a doctor? And you're like, what are you, a communist? And you're like, no, that's the whole world does that.
Well, that's
except
the thing.
us.
Our country is remarkably propagandized. Like,
yes. So again, I think, like I said, with the healthcare thing, the right is largely on this page now. When you listen to like Tim Dillon and fucking Joe Rogan and a lot of the influential people on the right, they understand that the healthcare system is broken. So we're on that page. And the propaganda thing is so good because these people are the most propagandized and they don't even realize it. That's the hilarious part. Let's
We
keep
are
listening.
remarkably propagandized. And that's what I'm talking about. A lot of working class people
You
voted for
specifically.
Donald Trump.
Sure. I mean, he gained a tremendous amount in that
There you go.
area.
He gained a tremendous amount in that area. They voted for him despite the fact that he has a Supreme Court that guts labor rights, that they are overwhelmingly opposed to raising a minimum wage, that they are really, that they're gutting the civil rights around working people and organizing, let alone.
So here's the thing about this issue specifically that Democrats don't understand. It's so clear that you guys pay fealty to this kind of stuff, but then do nothing about it. So when you have an option, because I don't think she's completely wrong about, the right, like, and their take on working people. They're not advocates of the working class historically. Now, maybe things have changed. We're going to see. We're going to find out. But to be honest, I mean, the immigration thing is a pro working class thing because the job market is, I mean, and I can say this, the debate around the H-1B visas and everything. I worked in tech. I had a recruiter tell me the other day, this is not even a joke. A recruiter told me the other day that a lot of companies laid people off in 2022 because they could bring in immigrants on cheap visas and hire or outsource because everyone works remote now. So if you work remote, the market is much more saturated because if you can work remote in India and they can pay you half the salary of an American, they're going to fucking do that. So it's like when you listen to AOC talk about how, the Republicans are like the anti-working class, maybe, but like we've been voting for Democrats for 20 years and you guys haven't done anything to help the working class. Anything. You fucking crushed a railroad strike under Biden. You fucking all worked together to stop the railroad strike. And all they wanted was a couple extra days off. So you just don't have any kind of high ground or any kind of, intellectual foundation anymore to make this argument from, because the Democrats have done nothing but pay fealty to the working class and shit like this. And to be honest, things like Roe v. Wade, they had the power for years to codify their worldview into law and do the kind of things the Republicans are doing. And they didn't do it. Because that's not their role. They are right-wingers. They're there to be the fall guy for a right-wing agenda. But I think what's happened now is that became so much the case that all the really bad neocon Republicans moved into the Democratic Party, and the carcass that was left over was like the libertarian Ron Paul people. And Trump was able to sweep in and take advantage of that back in 2016 with a little bit more of a populist message. And it resonated. And so, after being stomped repeatedly by the Democrats, the Bernie people, a lot of the populists on the left finally went, okay, we can cut deals with the Trump people on certain policy, like Ross Ulbricht, for example. That's a fucking great step in the right direction. Anyway, let's let these two out of touch clowns finish here.
Women and voting rights and for Black folks and immigrants, like put all of that aside, just on a working class level. We have elected.
And again, this is how out of touch AOC is. I want to play this clip again. I'm going to play this a lot because this is part of Trump's speech that gets ignored. That was totally ignored. No one in the press talks about this. Listen.
To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust.
Specifically thanking them. And I love the way he phrased that. He said the outpouring of love and trust, because the media is constantly demonizing him as a violent racist. So it took a lot of trust for Black and Hispanic people to vote for him. And he's acknowledging that. That is fucking massive.
That you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality.
So back to AOC.
The foxes for the hen house, to run the hen house. And so that is like something that we're going to have to confront, because what Zuckerberg and Bezos and all these people sitting behind them, they don't just represent billionaires. They represent all of the communication.
So again, it's like, dude, we're not stupid, AOC. She talks about Bezos and Zuckerberg and Elon. Elon's new to the game, obviously, but she conveniently leaves out Reid Hoffman, who is the fucking LinkedIn guy who fucking basically was trying to get Lena Khan out of the one good thing Biden did was have Lena Khan in the fucking, even JD Vance was a fan of Lena Khan because she was like very like pro worker. And that's another aspect of Trump that people are totally missing is the JD Vance part of the equation, because has a long political history of being very pro working class and from the working class. Even though he's a Yale guy, he came from humble roots. Anyway, I don't know how much more of this we need to listen to, but
platforms that people use in the United States. So the TikTok CEO is saying, we work for Trump. Meta, Instagram, and Facebook CEO is saying, we work for Trump. Of course, you've got Elon with his fucking like jumping around on a stage. All of them are saying,
again, okay, so this is the other thing about Elon. Like people are like, oh, Elon's a Nazi. Guess what? It's how very Hitler of you, Mr. Hitler, to allow millions upon millions of people to criticize you for making a Nazi gesture on your goddamn platform. Maybe he's censoring people. I don't know. If you got evidence that he's censoring people for that, put it in the comments. But it just seems like like so out of touch to pretend that like Elon Musk is this Nazi. When, you know, again, my take is he did that on purpose, because he knew a bunch of cunts would fucking boviate endlessly about it. Oh, God, Elon did a Nazi symbol. Meanwhile, Biden and Harris are fucking nuking little kids in fucking Gaza. Oh, Elon Musk did a Nazi symbol that harmed who? Nobody. Your feelings. That's it. Fucking priorities are so out of whack with these people. And then they wonder why they can't win an election. So just to hammer a little more on AOC before we sign off for the day, I want to remind you of, well, first of all, let's hear Adam Carolla's take about AOC. We can debate the.
Have him sort of agreeing with me now, so I'm told. Sorry.
Jimmy Dore on
oh boy, you're going to step in that one. What exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean, is it because she's young and
that was what? Hannity got his panties in a bunch when I said
she's
it.
young,
You know,
she's
like,
vibrant,
oh, shit,
she's beautiful, and everyone's always putting a camera and a mic in her face. But her opinions are idiotic 95% of the time. And I don't think if she was a middle-aged, heavy-set woman, anyone would care what she had to say. I'm not so sure I agree.
I do, actually. I do agree with that somewhat. I do think AOC is a fucking beautiful woman. And I think that a lot of the reason that people want to talk to her is because she's fucking hot. I mean, look at Jon Stewart's like almost blushing over there. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I don't think that disqualifies her. And I also don't think he's right about 95% of the things being said are stupid. I don't think she's a stupid person. I do think she's a partisan hack who says what the Democrats want her to say, because the reason she even has a following, I'm going to remind you, is because of this.
The ruckus on the Democratic Party. That is our job.
So I made this post a couple years ago kind of defending Jimmy Dore when Jimmy Dore was attacked for being a fucking misogynist for calling out AOC for her bullshit. And this is what I said. I said the reason so much anger is directed at AOC and the squad has zero to do with sexism or racism and stems from the reality that they were elected to bring the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That sounds so hip-hop, like something the Wu-Tang would say. Here's how it looks, though. So watch my video here.
Post had this alleged information,
and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter. Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset.
So I want
that is
I should just juxtapose that with Americans are so propagandized, because that's exactly she thinks like Russian disinformation is a thing. She's propagandized.
Her job. New York Post had this alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter.
And again, it's like what's upsetting about this is it's clear that she doesn't care what's right or wrong. She's just defending her team. That's the kind of thing that I don't respect from either side. And that's why people like Thomas Massey and fucking Matt Gaetz have such such devoted, like Thomas Massey specifically, maybe not Matt Gaetz anymore because he's been adequately smeared in the press, but the reason Thomas Massey has such a devoted fan base is because people see that he's being authentic about these issues, not just a partisan hack. And here's AOC showing who she really is.
Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset.
And we commissioned an independent forensic review to determine its authenticity. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us now with what we found. Catherine, I'm very interested. Good morning.
Good morning, Tony. These House Republican investigations are coming, and that could be a challenge for the White House as we head into 2023 and 2024. The laptop data we had analyzed showed no evidence it was faked or tampered with.
So that reporter right there, Catherine Herridge, was literally fired and I think charged with something after this too. So AOC wants to sit here and talk about fascism and all this shit with Trump. Holy fucking shit. Pull your head out of your ass, AOC. This woman, Catherine Herridge right here, was fired or fucking prosecuted by the government for reporting accurately on this Hunter Biden laptop. Now I gotta look into I can't remember what she was charged with or what the full story was, but okay, so Catherine Herridge. Court appears unlikely to spare former Fox News reporter. So this is from Politico. Here, let's look at this real quick. In contempt fight. So a federal appeals court panel appears unlikely to rescue former Fox News reporter facing. Look how they even paint her as a Fox News reporter. When she reported on this, she was on ABC. Facing fines and potentially jail time for refusing to identify her source for a series of stories about a woman with ties to the Chinese People's Liberation Army. The case involving reporter Catherine Herridge could become the first big showdown over press freedom during President Donald Trump's second term, as President Trump will lack the power to directly waive the fine or potential jail time that Herridge faces, but he could order the Justice Department to settle an underlying lawsuit filed by the woman. Yan Ping Chen. Settling the suit would wipe away the fines and any other punishment against Herridge. Trump has long praised and amplified Herridge's reporting on other topics, especially her stories that raise questions about the investigations he faced in 2017 and 2018 over his presidential campaign's contacts with Russia. And that right there is why she's being persecuted. Journalists should be allowed to have anonymous sources. That's part of what journalism is. Anyway, sidebar there.
Digital forensic investigator Mark.
Democratic Party does not do more unless it is pushed. So we need to push them. And they don't like it.
And I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wear a fucking dress that says tax the rich at the Met Gala.
Them, but that is our job. That's our job.
You have to fight the cancer of corruption.
Start bringing
just go ahead and Google Biden Inc. and you'll find that Politico article, because that guy goes into intense detail about all the corrupt shit that the Bidens were doing before he actually became president. I'm surprised it's still on the internet, to be honest. So AOC is wildly out of touch, and Jon Stewart, man, like he has some moments in there where he really kind of comes through, I think. But overall, just not a good look for Jon Stewart. I just think that he's trying to help the Democrats rebrand themselves, and they're clearly going to try to elevate AOC as a presidential candidate in the coming years or whatever. She's the new face of the party because she's a good little doggy who won't fight too hard for the things that should change, and will defend clearly corrupt figures within her own party. I think it's interesting to me, when I saw this in my feed, this Jon Stewart AOC interview, it to me, I went, oh, I can smell this. I can smell what's going on here. I can smell what y'all are cooking. Y'all are cooking like the new Joe Rogan lefty thing that it's just so fake and so kind of like produced too. It's like, even for a podcast, it like looks very like put together and kind of like not like a raw conversation. I'm sure there was parts of it that were edited. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe John just posted up. But again, the reason people like Joe Rogan is because it's a raw, authentic conversation between two people. And it's not just, some edited, produced narrative fucking shaper, which is what, apparently Jon Stewart doesn't. He's an executive producer on like the Colbert Show, but I always thought like an executive producer credit just meant that you kind of like got some money from it because, Colbert owed him for making him famous on the Daily Show and spinning him off into his own show. And I'm sure John was executive producer on the Colbert Report, one of the best shows of all time, I think. Sad fucking decline for Stephen Colbert and his audience. That's Stephen Colbert's audience, by the way. Just a small sampling of their. Oh, here's another sampling of his audience. Anyway, good show today. Wow, this one went a little bit longer than I had expected. It's funny because I'll put these together and be like, this one's going to be short. I'm only going to do 5 segments, and this one's been 2 hours. So, what do you know? I obviously yap a lot. Thanks for jumping on. Like and subscribe. Hit me in the comments. I feel like I don't get enough of you guys jumping on the comments and telling me giving me what for, telling me I'm a whack ass fool, or like giving me praise, or tell me what I'm wrong about, or just talking shit. So please jump in and do that. And we're gonna take you out with Kimmy Jimmel clip for you, and we will see you probably Sunday. If not Sunday, we'll be back for more TADs next week. The almost daily shows, and I appreciate y'all. Keep it real out there. Take good care of yourselves, and we're gonna see. We are going to see, sir. We're going to see what's going to happen. We will see what comes.
Yo, we here now, stupid.